My friend, let me speak to you from the heart. You already know the struggle you face every single day when it comes to English. You sit there wanting to speak, wanting to express yourself, but something holds you back. Fear, doubt, that little voice inside your head that whispers, "What if I make a mistake? What if they laugh at me? What if I sound stupid?" But let me tell you something powerful today. Mistakes are not your enemy. Mistakes are the proof that you are trying, that you are growing, that you are moving forward. Every single fluent speaker you see today was once exactly where you are now, scared, nervous, insecure. The only difference is they refuse to stay silent. They open their mouth, even when their voice trembled. Confidence in English will never come from sitting quietly. It will never come from memorizing rules alone. Confidence is built when you take the risk to speak, even when your grammar is not perfect, even when your accent is strong. Confidence is born in the moment you stop caring about judgment and start caring about progress. Think about this. When a child learns to walk, they fall again and again. Nobody laughs at them. Nobody tells them to stop trying. They fall, but they rise, and eventually they walk with strength. That is exactly how your English will grow. Yes, you will stumble. Yes, you will forget words. Yes, you will be corrected. But those are not failures. They are steps. Steps towards your confident, unstoppable self. Imagine the doors that will open for you when you finally let go of fear. Imagine walking into an interview and speaking with clarity. Imagine traveling anywhere in the world and expressing yourself without hesitation. Imagine building connections, friendships, and opportunities just because you dared to speak. That is not just about learning English. It is about transforming your life. The truth is, the world does not need your perfect grammar. The world needs your voice, your story, your ideas, your passion, and none of that can shine if you let fear silence you. So today, make a promise to yourself. From this moment forward, you will no longer wait for the perfect time to speak. You will no longer wait until you are ready, because readiness is not something you wait for. It is something you create. Start speaking today. Speak to yourself, speak to your friends, speak even if it is broken, speak even if it is messy. Every word you speak brings you closer to confidence. Remember, your future self is waiting for you. The confident version of you who speaks English freely is not far away. It is inside you right now, waiting to be released. All it takes is courage. Courage to speak when it feels uncomfortable. Courage to keep going when it feels hard. Courage to believe in yourself when no one else does. Do not let fear be stronger than your dreams. Your voice matters. Your words matter. And when you finally speak with confidence, you won't just change your English, you will change your life. You see, the very first step to finally speaking English with confidence is not learning more vocabulary, not memorizing more grammar rules, and not spending endless hours watching videos. The first step is understanding that your biggest enemy is not the English language, it is fear. Fear is the wall that stands between you and the confident version of yourself. Fear of being judged, fear of sounding wrong, fear of people laughing at you, fear of failing. That fear is heavier than any textbook, stronger than any accent, and more limiting than any lack of vocabulary. Think about it. How many times have you wanted to say something in English but stopped yourself because you were afraid? How many times have you stayed silent in class, in meetings, or even in casual conversations because your heart started racing and your mind whispered, "What if I make a mistake? What if I embarrass myself?" You see, it's not English that stopped you in those moments. It was fear. This is why overcoming fear is the first step of learning. Because until you remove the chains of fear, every lesson, every rule, every practice session will feel heavy and useless. You could know hundreds of words, but if fear holds your tongue, those words will never come out. You could read grammar books for years, but if fear keeps you silent, your voice will never be heard. I want you to understand something very important. Fear is an illusion. It is not real. It lives only in your mind. It feeds on your doubts, on your insecurities, on your imagination of the worst outcome. Fear tells you that people will laugh, but will they? Fear tells you that one mistake will make you look stupid, but will it really? Fear tells you that your accent is a problem, but isn't an accent just a sign of courage, that you speak more than one language? Every single confident speaker you admire once had the same fear you feel right now. The only difference is that they took the first step. They decided that fear would no longer control them, and you must do the same. So how do you break this fear? You face it. Step by step, little by little, you challenge it. Start by speaking even if your hands shake. Start by saying one sentence even if your voice trembles. Start by asking one question even if you're not sure it's correct. Because the more you face fear, the smaller it becomes. The more you challenge it, the weaker it grows. And one day, you'll look back and realize that what once felt impossible now feels natural. Let me give you an example. Imagine a person standing at the edge of a swimming pool, afraid to jump in. They watch others swimming with ease, but their mind is full of fear. What if I drown? What if I can't swim? What if everyone laughs at me? The truth is, they will never learn until they jump in. That first jump is the hardest, but once they do it, they realize the water is not as scary as they thought. That's exactly how it is with English. Speaking for the first time feels like jumping into the pool. But once you do it, once you survive the first splash, you realize you can actually float, you can actually swim, and step by step, you gain confidence. This is why breaking fear is not just part of the journey, it is the very first step of the journey. Without it, you are like a traveler standing at the starting line, too afraid to take the first step forward. With it, you finally begin to walk, and every step after becomes easier. So I want you to remember this. You don't have to be fearless to speak English with confidence. You only need enough courage to speak despite the fear. Fear will never completely disappear, but courage will always be stronger if you choose it. And once you take that first brave step, you will realize something powerful. The language was never your prison. Fear was. And the moment you break that fear, you set yourself free. When you begin this journey, the very first step of learning is to change the way you see mistakes. For too long, you have been taught to fear mistakes, to avoid them, to hide from them. In school, when you gave a wrong answer, people laughed. When you mispronounced a word, someone corrected you harshly. Slowly, without realizing it, you started believing that mistakes are shameful, that they are signs of weakness. But let me tell you something powerful. Mistakes are not your enemy. Mistakes are proof that you are moving forward. They are the footsteps on the path to success. Think about it this way. Have you ever seen a baby learning to walk? They fall again and again. They stumble, they cry, they hit the ground. But do their parents get angry? Do people laugh at them? No. Everyone claps, everyone cheers, everyone says, "It's okay, keep going." Because every fall is proof that the child is learning. Every fall is progress. Every fall is a necessary step toward walking confidently. And isn't language learning the same? Every wrong sentence, every forgotten word, every broken phrase, it's not a failure. It's your version of falling. It's part of the process. The problem is many learners stop themselves the moment they make a mistake. They feel embarrassed, they feel judged, and so they decide to stay silent. But silence is the real failure, not mistakes, because when you stay silent, you learn nothing. When you speak and make a mistake, you open the door to correction, to improvement, to growth. That is why I tell you, the first step of learning is not about being perfect. It is about embracing your mistakes with courage. Let me ask you, when you ride a bicycle for the first time, do you expect to balance perfectly? No. You wobble, you fall, you scratch your knee. But you keep riding, and soon your balance improves. Speaking English is the same. At first, you will wobble with your words. You will fall in your sentences. But if you keep going, you will balance your thoughts, your grammar, your pronunciation. Perfection will come later. Progress begins with mistakes. Do you know what mistakes really are? They are teachers. They teach you lessons that no textbook ever could. When you forget a word in the middle of a conversation, that word stays in your mind forever afterward. When you use the wrong tense and someone corrects you, you remember it more strongly than if you had just read it in a book. Mistakes carve lessons into your memory in a way that perfection never does. That is why the people who succeed the fastest are the ones who are not afraid to fail the most. Imagine this. Two students want to learn English. The first one stays quiet, studies grammar, memorizes vocabulary, but rarely speaks for fear of mistakes. The second one speaks every day, even if it's broken, even if it's full of errors. A month later, who do you think will be more confident? Who do you think will have learned more? Of course, the second one. Why? Because mistakes were not walls for them, they were stepping stones. So I want you to stop seeing mistakes as something negative. Start celebrating them. Every time you make a mistake, tell yourself, "I just took another step forward," because that is exactly what happened. You cannot grow without them. You cannot build confidence without them. And listen carefully. Nobody cares about your mistakes as much as you think they do. People are busy with their own lives. When you speak in English, they are listening to your message, not counting your grammar slips. Even if someone laughs, let them. Their laughter does not define your journey. Your courage does. The first step of learning English with confidence is to give yourself permission to be imperfect, to accept that you will fall, you will stumble, and that's okay. Because every stumble is evidence that you are trying, and trying is the only way you will ever succeed. So the next time you speak and your sentence breaks in half, smile. The next time you use the wrong word, laugh at yourself gently and move on. The next time someone corrects you, say thank you instead of feeling ashamed. Each mistake is a badge of honor. It shows that you had the courage to speak. It shows that you are learning. It shows that you are alive on this journey. Remember this forever. Mistakes are not the opposite of success. Mistakes are the road to success. And the more mistakes you make, the closer you are to speaking English with the confidence you dream of. The very first step of learning to speak English with confidence is not about chasing perfection. It is about taking action. You see, too many learners wait. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect vocabulary, the perfect grammar, the perfect accent. They keep telling themselves, I'll start speaking when I'm ready. I'll open my mouth when I feel more confident. I'll practice when I know enough. But here's the truth you need to hear. That moment will never come. You will never suddenly wake up one day and feel ready. Confidence is not something you wait for. It is something you create, and you create it by taking action. Think about it. Did you learn to ride a bicycle by reading the manual? Did you learn to swim by watching videos? Of course not. You learned by doing it, by falling, by struggling, by moving, by taking action. Speaking English works exactly the same way. You cannot learn confidence from books. You cannot download it from the internet. You cannot buy it. The only way you build it is by speaking, by practicing, by acting, even when you feel nervous, even when you feel unprepared. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone standing in front of a door. Behind that door is everything they want: success, opportunities, friendships, freedom, confidence. But this person is waiting for the right time to open the door. They think, what if I don't know the right words? What if I say something wrong? So they stand there, waiting, waiting, waiting. Days pass, weeks pass, months pass, even years pass, and the door never opens. Why? Because doors don't open by waiting. Doors open by action. All it takes is the courage to turn the handle and walk inside. The first step of learning English with confidence is this: stop waiting for perfection and start taking imperfect action. Speak even if your sentence is broken. Speak even if your accent is strong. Speak even if your grammar is not correct. Because every time you speak, you take one more step toward confidence. And every time you avoid speaking, you take one step backward. Confidence is like a muscle. If you never use it, it becomes weak. If you train it daily, it becomes strong. Think about going to the gym. On the first day, you cannot lift heavy weights. You struggle even with the lightest dumbbell. But if you keep training every day, your muscles grow, your strength increases, and soon you can lift weights that once seemed impossible. Confidence in English works exactly the same way. At first, even saying, hello, how are you, may feel difficult. But if you practice daily, your voice grows stronger, your words flow easier, and one day, you will speak sentences that once felt impossible. Now let me tell you why waiting for perfection is dangerous. Perfection is an illusion. No one speaks perfect English, not even native speakers. They make mistakes, they forget words, they change their sentences halfway. If perfection were required, nobody in the world would speak. So why should you hold yourself back? Why should you wait for something that doesn't even exist? The people who succeed are not the ones who know everything. They are the ones who take action with what they know. They don't say, I'll speak when I'm perfect. They say, I'll speak now and I'll improve along the way. That mindset is the first step to real progress. I want you to imagine this. You're at a party and someone asks you a question in English. You have two choices. Choice 1, you stay silent, afraid of mistakes. Choice 2, you answer, even if your words are not perfect. Which choice builds confidence? The second one, because confidence is built in action, not in silence. The truth is, action creates results, and results create confidence. The more you act, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more confident you become. And suddenly, one day you realize, I can do this. I can actually speak English. So stop waiting for tomorrow. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting to feel ready. The first step of learning is to act now, in this moment, with whatever English you have right now. Speak it, use it, share it, because every word you speak is a seed of confidence planted in your future. Remember this forever. Perfection is not the starting point. It is the finishing line. And the only way to reach it is by walking the path of action. So take that step. Speak today, speak tomorrow, speak every day. Do it afraid, do it imperfect, do it broken, but do it, because confidence will never come from waiting. It will only come from acting. The very first step of learning to speak English with confidence is to think like a child learning to walk. When a child takes their first steps, nobody expects perfection. Nobody tells them, walk straight from day one, don't fall, don't wobble, don't stumble. No, instead, everyone claps when they fall, everyone smiles when they stumble, everyone cheers when they try again. Because the truth is, falling is part of walking, stumbling is part of learning. Every mistake is progress, but somewhere along the way, as we grow older, we forget this truth. We start to think that mistakes are shameful. We start to believe that we should speak perfectly from the very first try. And when we don't, we feel embarrassed. We stop trying, and we let fear control us. That's why so many people stay silent, not because they cannot learn, but because they have forgotten how to learn like a child. When a child is learning to walk, they don't care if they fall 10 times, 100 times, or 1,000 times. They don't say, I'm not good at this, so I'll stop. They don't quit. They keep standing up, again and again, until their legs become strong, and one day, without even realizing it, they are running. That's exactly how you must approach English. The first step of learning is to accept that you will stumble, you will fall, but each time you stand up again, you are growing stronger. Think about your own journey. How many times have you avoided speaking because you were afraid of mistakes? How many times have you stayed silent even though you knew the answer? What if, instead of being afraid, you treated every mistake the way a child treats a fall, just a natural part of learning? Imagine how much faster you would grow. Here's the secret. Children are fearless learners because they don't carry the burden of judgment. They don't worry about what people will think. They don't compare themselves to others. They simply try, fall, and try again. And that's why they succeed. That's why a baby can learn the hardest skill, walking without ever giving up. So why can't you? Why can't you speak English with that same mindset? The truth is, you can. The only difference is your perspective. If you see every mistake as failure, you'll stop. But if you see every mistake as part of the process, you'll keep going. And that persistence is what will take you from broken English to confident English. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a child falling while trying to walk. The parents don't say, oh no, you failed, you will never walk again. No. They encourage the child, they smile, they say, try again. In the same way, when you make a mistake in English, don't say to yourself, I'm terrible at this, I'll never learn. Instead say, great, I tried, now let me try again. Because every attempt, every fall, every stumble is proof that you're learning. And let's be honest, wouldn't it be strange if a child stood up one day and walked perfectly on the very first try? That would be unnatural. The same is true for English. Expecting yourself to speak perfectly from the beginning is unnatural. The natural way is to stumble first, then walk, then run. The natural way is to learn like a child. So the first step of learning is to bring back that childlike mindset. Allow yourself to be imperfect. Allow yourself to fall. Allow yourself to laugh at your mistakes, because this mindset removes the heavy pressure of perfection and replaces it with freedom. Freedom to try, freedom to fail, freedom to grow. And here's something powerful. When you adopt this mindset, learning English stops being a burden and becomes a game. Just like children treat walking as play, you begin to treat speaking as practice. And when learning feels like play, you progress faster than you ever imagined. So, my friend, let me remind you, don't try to be perfect from day one. Don't be afraid of falling. Don't be ashamed of stumbling. Think like a child learning to walk, because every time you fall and stand again, you are one step closer to running freely in English. The very first step of learning to speak English with confidence is to understand this. Your voice, your ideas, your message matter far more than grammar. Too many people remain silent, not because they don't have thoughts, not because they don't have dreams, but because they are too focused on whether their sentence is correct. They lock their voices inside because of a misplaced verb, a wrong tense, or a missing article. But let me ask you this: what is more valuable? A perfectly structured sentence with no meaning, or a simple broken sentence that carries a powerful idea? The world needs your ideas, not your perfection. Think about the most inspiring people you have ever listened to. Did you remember their grammar or did you remember their message? Did you count their mistakes or did you feel their passion? The truth is, communication is not about perfection. It is about connection. And connection comes from your heart, your voice, your ideas. Grammar is only the tool, not the purpose. When you make grammar the center of your focus, you put chains on your own tongue. You pause before every word. You hesitate. You overthink. And eventually, you stay silent. But when you shift your focus to your message, to what you truly want to say, your words begin to flow, even if they are not perfect. People don't connect to rules. They connect to emotion. They connect to energy. They connect to authenticity. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone in an interview saying, "I very want this job because I work hard. I never give up, and I believe I can grow with your company." Now, is the grammar perfect? No. But is the message clear? Absolutely. That message shows determination, passion, and confidence. And passion will always speak louder than grammar. Now imagine someone else in the same interview sitting silently because they are afraid of making mistakes. Who do you think will have a better chance? Of course, the one who spoke, because speaking with mistakes is better than not speaking at all. The first step of learning is to free yourself from the prison of perfection. Understand that grammar is important, yes, but it is not everything. Nobody rejects a message because of one wrong tense. Nobody ignores your story because of one misplaced word. In fact, people admire courage. They admire effort. They admire someone who dares to speak despite imperfection. And here's something powerful. Even native speakers don't use perfect grammar all the time. They cut sentences short, they make errors, they forget words. But do they stop speaking? No. They continue because communication is not about perfect grammar. It's about delivering the message. If even native speakers don't speak perfectly, why should you hold yourself back? Think about history. Some of the greatest leaders in the world didn't have perfect language skills, yet they inspired millions. Not because of flawless grammar, but because of powerful ideas. Your voice can do the same, but only if you allow it to be heard. Imagine a student in class. They know the answer, but they stay silent because they are afraid their grammar might be wrong. Another student with less knowledge raises their hand and speaks with confidence, mistakes and all. Who do you think the teacher remembers? The one who spoke. Confidence and action will always beat silence and fear. So the first step of learning is to focus on what truly matters. Your voice. Your voice has power. It carries your story, your personality, your dreams. Don't bury it under the weight of grammar. Don't silence it because of a misplaced word. Speak and let your message shine through. I want you to imagine this clearly. You are standing in front of people, your heart racing. You open your mouth and your words come out. Broken maybe, but real. The people listening don't care about the mistakes. They are listening to you, to your passion, to your truth. They feel your energy. And in that moment, you realize something powerful. Your voice was always more important than your grammar. So, speak. Speak boldly, speak passionately, speak imperfectly, but speak. Because the world is waiting for your ideas, your vision, your contribution. Grammar can be fixed along the way, but silence cannot. Silence kills progress. Speaking, even with mistakes, creates growth. Remember, the very first step of learning is not to be perfect, but to be brave. Brave enough to share your voice, even when it shakes. Brave enough to share your ideas, even when your grammar isn't polished. Brave enough to keep talking, because every word you speak is a step toward the confident English speaker you dream to become. The very first step of learning to speak English with confidence is to understand that courage is the key that unlocks every opportunity. Not grammar, not vocabulary, not a perfect accent. Courage. Because courage is what pushes you to speak when your heart is racing. Courage is what makes you raise your hand in class, share your opinion in a meeting, or ask a stranger for directions in English. Without courage, knowledge stays trapped inside. Without courage, your voice stays hidden. But with courage, even broken words can open doors. Think about this for a moment. How many opportunities have passed you by because you were too afraid to speak? Maybe it was a job interview where you knew the answers but stayed silent. Maybe it was a networking event where you wanted to introduce yourself but held back. Maybe it was a classroom moment when you knew the solution but didn't raise your hand. Each of those moments could have changed something in your life, but fear stood in the way, and fear always wins when courage is absent. That's why courage is the first step of learning, because English is not just a language, it's a bridge to better careers, better relationships, better opportunities. but you can only cross that bridge if you have the courage to step onto it. Every time you choose courage over fear, you move closer to a life filled with possibilities. Now, let me show you how powerful courage really is. Imagine two people learning English. One knows a lot of grammar and vocabulary but never speaks because they're scared. The other knows only a little, but they speak whenever they can. Mistakes, pauses, everything. Who do you think will get more opportunities? The second one. Because courage makes progress visible. Courage makes effort visible. Courage is attractive. People respect courage more than perfection. Here's the truth. People don't remember how perfect your English was. They remember the impression you left. They remember the way you made them feel. They remember your boldness to speak up when others stayed quiet. That boldness is courage, and courage creates connection. Connection creates opportunity. Think of it like this. Opportunity is a locked door. The key is not perfect grammar. The key is not a fancy accent. The key is courage. Courage to knock. Courage to step forward. Courage to say, I might not be perfect, but I will try. Once you do, doors open. Doors you never imagined before. Look around the world today. How many people are living extraordinary lives, not because they were perfect, but because they were brave enough to take the first step. They spoke when they weren't ready. They acted when they weren't sure. They tried when failure seemed certain, and because of that courage, they grew, they connected, they found opportunities that changed their lives. You can do the same. So the first step of learning is to practice courage daily. Start small. Say hello to someone in English. Ask one question in English. Share one thought in English. Each time you do, you are training your courage muscle. And just like any muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. One day, you will find yourself speaking confidently in places where you once stayed silent. Not because your English suddenly became perfect, but because your courage became unstoppable. I want you to picture this. You're standing in front of a room full of people and they ask you to speak. Your heart beats fast, your palms sweat, but instead of letting fear control you, you choose courage. You open your mouth and you speak. Your words are not perfect, but they are powerful. The room listens, the room respects you, and in that moment, you realize something life-changing. Courage is what brought you here. Courage gave you this opportunity. Courage changed everything. This is why courage is not optional on your journey. It is essential. Knowledge without courage is silent. Talent without courage is invisible. Dreams without courage stay locked inside your mind. But with courage, even broken English can take you places fluent silence never could. So remember, the first step of learning is not about speaking perfectly. It is about daring to speak at all. Daring to stand up. Daring to open your mouth. Daring to share your thoughts. Every opportunity you dream of is waiting for you on the other side of courage. My friend, now you know the truth. The road to speaking English with confidence is not built on perfection. It is built on courage, mistakes, persistence, and belief in yourself. Fear is not your enemy. Mistakes are not your weakness. Perfection is not your goal. The true first step of learning is action, courage, and the willingness to rise again and again. Think like a child. Fall, rise, and keep moving forward. Focus not on grammar, but on the power of your voice, the strength of your ideas, the fire in your heart, and never forget, opportunities belong to the brave. Every time you speak, you open a door. Every time you stay silent, you close one. So from this moment on, promise yourself something. You will no longer let fear silence your dreams. You will no longer wait for the perfect time. You will no longer bury your voice under self-doubt. From today, you will speak. Speak when it's hard. Speak when it's uncomfortable. Speak when your voice trembles. Speak because your future is waiting for you to be bold. And one day, you will look back and realize that the small, shaky steps you take today were the very steps that changed your life. You will stand tall, speak freely, and shine with confidence. And in that moment, you will know it wasn't grammar, it wasn't perfection, it wasn't luck, it was your courage, your persistence, your refusal to give up. The world is waiting for your voice. Don't keep it hidden any longer. Speak, because your voice matters, your dreams matter, and your time is now.